Kindness is often celebrated as one of the greatest virtues. From a young age, we're taught to be polite, to help others, to avoid conflict, and to always be nice. On the surface, that sounds noble, even ideal. But what happens when kindness is no longer a conscious choice, but a reflex? What happens when your desire to be good quietly turns into a pattern of self-betrayal? Many people live their lives as if being kind means constantly putting others first, suppressing their own needs, and avoiding any action that might upset someone. They believe that being agreeable will make life smoother and relationships stronger. But the truth is, being too nice can secretly ruin your life from the inside out. It can drain your energy, erode your confidence, and lead others to take advantage of you without you even realizing it. In this video, we're going to explore the dark side of kindness, not to discourage kindness itself, but to uncover how misplaced kindness can weaken your boundaries, damage your self-respect, and shape a life built on pleasing others instead of honoring yourself. And more importantly, we'll look at how Stoic wisdom can help you remain kind without losing your power. Section 1. The psychology of being too nice. To understand how excessive kindness can harm you, we have to look at the psychology behind it. Being too nice usually doesn't come from genuine strength. It often stems from a deep need for approval. Many people equate kindness with being accepted, liked, or validated. They believe that if they're always pleasant, agreeable, and helpful, others will treat them with the same warmth in return. But this mindset creates a dangerous emotional trap. When your self-worth becomes tied to how others perceive you, kindness stops being a choice. It becomes a survival mechanism. You start to smile when you don't feel like it. You agree to things you don't believe in. You silence your own voice to avoid making waves. Over time, this constant self-editing slowly reshapes your identity. Instead of living authentically, you become someone who constantly performs for the comfort of others. This is exactly what Stoic philosophy warns us about: building your peace on something you cannot control. You can't control other people's opinions, their moods, or their responses to you. If your sense of self depends on their approval, you'll always be vulnerable. The Stoics believe true virtue comes from inner strength, not external validation. Kindness rooted in fear of rejection isn't kindness at all. It's self-abandonment disguised as goodness. And perhaps the most subtle danger of being too nice is this: the world often rewards confidence, not compliance. People don't always respect endless kindness. They respect clarity, authenticity, and strength. If your niceness comes at the cost of your own voice, you'll eventually feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated, no matter how much you give. Section 2. The cost of constant approval seeking. When kindness is driven by the desire to be liked, it becomes less about generosity and more about emotional survival. Constant approval seeking is one of the most subtle and destructive habits a person can develop. On the surface, it looks harmless, even admirable. You say yes to everything, you avoid disagreement, you bend over backwards to make everyone happy. But beneath that polished exterior, something dangerous is happening. You slowly begin to lose yourself. One of the first costs is emotional exhaustion. Living for the approval of others means you are constantly monitoring how people perceive you. Every word, every action, every expression is carefully filtered to avoid judgment or rejection. This mental surveillance doesn't just drain your energy, it robs you of peace. Your mind is always on, scanning for cues, trying to manage other people's reactions, something you can never fully control. The second cost is resentment. When you keep saying yes to things you don't want to do, when you constantly put others' comfort above your own needs, frustration builds silently inside you. Over time, that frustration turns into bitterness. You start to feel used, unappreciated, and invisible. What began as a desire to be kind ends up breeding quiet anger toward the very people you were trying to please. And then comes the loss of self-respect. Every time you abandon your own boundaries to keep others happy, a small part of your self-trust erodes. You start to doubt your own worth. You question whether your voice matters. You convince yourself that pleasing others is safer than standing firm. But deep down, a quiet voice whispers that you are betraying yourself, and that voice doesn't go away. The Stoics understood this dynamic well. They taught that seeking validation from others is a form of self-enslavement. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be loved, love yourself first." Stoicism reminds us that the opinions of others are outside our control. They are external events. Anchoring your happiness to something external will always lead to instability. When your sense of peace depends on everyone liking you, you're handing them the power to shape your emotional state. Approval seeking also affects how others perceive you. People might initially appreciate your kindness, but over time, they begin to sense the lack of authenticity. They may take advantage of your willingness to accommodate. Some may respect you less because they equate your constant compliance with weakness. Even if you have the best intentions, this is the paradox of people-pleasing. The more you try to make everyone happy, the less genuine connection you build. True respect doesn't come from constant agreement. It comes from clarity, honesty, and the quiet strength of someone who knows their own worth. Section 3. The boundaries. Problem 1 of the biggest reasons being too nice can secretly ruin your life is the lack of boundaries. Many people confuse kindness with total availability, thinking that saying no makes them selfish or unkind. But the truth is, kindness without boundaries isn't kindness, it's self-neglect. When you constantly say yes to everyone, you leave no room for yourself. You stretch your time, your energy, and your emotional capacity until you're running on empty. At first, people might praise your helpfulness. They might even rely on you for everything. But over time, this unspoken agreement forms. You give and they take. And because you've set no boundaries, the cycle continues until you find yourself exhausted, overwhelmed, and quietly resentful. Boundaries are not walls. They are lines of clarity. They define where your responsibility ends and where someone else's begins. They communicate your values, your limits, and your priorities. Without them, people will project their needs onto you, and you'll keep absorbing them, not because you want to, but because you're too afraid to draw the line. The problem is, many nice people see boundaries as confrontation. They worry that saying no will upset someone, damage the relationship, or make them look cold. But boundaries, when communicated with calmness and respect, actually build stronger relationships. They show others that you respect yourself, and that self-respect teaches others how to treat you. The Stoics deeply understood this idea, even if they didn't use the modern word boundaries. They believed in living in alignment with reason and virtue, not the shifting emotions or demands of others. Setting boundaries is a rational act. It's choosing where to invest your limited energy in a way that aligns with your values. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Love mankind, but follow the path of reason." In other words, be kind, but don't let kindness turn into self-erasure. Consider everyday situations. A coworker constantly dumps extra work on you because they know you'll never refuse. A friend repeatedly cancels plans, but you keep accommodating them to avoid conflict. A family member expects you to fix their problems, even at the expense of your own well-being. In each of these cases, the lack of boundaries creates imbalance, and over time, imbalance turns into quiet suffering. Healthy boundaries don't make you less kind. They make your kindness sustainable. They ensure that when you give, you do so from choice, not compulsion. And that difference changes everything. When your kindness comes with strength, people respect you more. When it comes from fear, people unconsciously take more than they give. So the next time you feel the urge to say yes out of guilt or fear, pause. Ask yourself, is this kindness, or am I betraying myself to keep the peace? True kindness requires honesty, both with others and with yourself. Section 4. When kindness turns into self-betrayal, kindness becomes dangerous when it starts to cost you your sense of self. At some point, being too nice shifts from generosity to self-betrayal. It happens quietly, often without you noticing. You start prioritizing everyone else's comfort over your own truth. You silence your opinions to avoid disagreement. You bury your needs so others won't feel inconvenienced. You say it's fine even when it's not. Over time, this pattern creates a gap, a space between who you are and how you present yourself to the world. The longer this gap grows, the more disconnected you become from your authentic identity. You may begin to feel a quiet, constant fatigue, not just physical but emotional. You lose sight of what you want, what you believe in, and what truly matters to you. This kind of inner disconnection is one of the most painful consequences of excessive kindness. The Stoics warned against living to please others instead of living in accordance with your own reason and values. They taught that virtue and integrity should guide our actions, not the shifting expectations of the crowd. Epictetus reminded his students that you can't live a good life if you're constantly trying to shape yourself to fit other people's desires. Self-betrayal through kindness often looks like this. You agree to help a friend even when you're emotionally drained. You accept unfair treatment from a partner to avoid confrontation. You stay silent when someone crosses a line because speaking up feels too harsh. But every time you do this, a part of you learns that your voice doesn't matter, that your needs are secondary, that pleasing others is more important than being true to yourself. This is not kindness, it's quiet self-abandonment. And the painful irony is, the more you betray yourself, the less genuine your kindness becomes. It starts to come from guilt, fear, or habit, not from love or strength. Over time, this erodes your inner confidence, making it harder to stand your ground when it truly matters. True kindness never requires you to betray yourself. It flows from authenticity, not obligation. And when you learn to align kindness with self-respect, you stop giving from emptiness and start giving from wholeness. Section 5, the social consequences, how others perceive too nice. While the inner cost of being too nice is serious, the social consequences can be just as damaging. Ironically, people often don't admire endless niceness. They exploit it, misunderstand it, or lose respect for it. When you never set boundaries, some people will unconsciously see you as someone who can be taken advantage of. They won't necessarily do this with malicious intent. It's simply human nature to lean on those who never push back. If you're always available, people may start to assume your time and energy are limitless. If you never say no, they'll keep asking for more. Others may misinterpret your kindness as weakness. In a world that often values assertiveness, constant agreeableness can make people assume you lack confidence or self-respect. They might talk over you, dismiss your opinions, or not take you seriously, not because you lack value, but because you've unintentionally taught them that you'll accept anything. And then there's the respect factor. Respect is built on clarity, consistency, and strength. When you stand up for yourself calmly and clearly, people might not always like it, but they will respect it. On the other hand, if your kindness comes with no limits, people may feel comfortable, but they won't necessarily value you. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that how you conduct yourself teaches others how to treat you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, embody your values with quiet strength. If your kindness is backed by wisdom and boundaries, people will see you as someone dependable and respectable. If it's driven by fear, they'll treat you accordingly. Think about it in practical terms. A co-worker who never says no eventually becomes everyone's go-to problem solver, often at the cost of their own career. A friend who never speaks up ends up being taken for granted. A partner who avoids confrontation loses influence in the relationship. In each case, being too nice leads others to underestimate your value, even if you're incredibly capable. This doesn't mean you should become cold or distant. It means your kindness should be anchored in self-respect. When you communicate your limits clearly, you teach others to value your time, your energy, and your presence. And that's how kindness earns respect rather than erodes it. Section 6. Reclaiming your power without losing your kindness. The goal isn't to stop being kind. Kindness is one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. But kindness without strength turns into self-erasure, while kindness anchored in wisdom becomes a force for genuine connection and respect. Reclaiming your power doesn't mean becoming harsh or detached. It means learning to give consciously, not compulsively. It's about shifting from pleasing to choosing. The first step is to learn to say no with clarity and calmness. For many people, this feels uncomfortable at first, because they equate no with rejection. But a firm, respectful no is not cruel, it's honest. You don't owe long, emotional explanations for every boundary you set. Sometimes a simple, "I can't take that on right now," is enough. Each time you choose honesty over appeasement, you strengthen your inner authority. Second, stop apologizing for having needs. Constantly saying sorry for setting boundaries or expressing preferences signals to others and to yourself that your needs are somehow less important. The Stoics believed that every individual has a duty to live in accordance with reason and nature. That includes taking care of your own well-being. You are not selfish for protecting your energy. You are responsible. Third, practice assertive communication. Assertiveness is not aggression. It's the ability to express your thoughts, needs, and feelings honestly while respecting the other person. This means you can disagree without hostility, set limits without guilt, and speak your truth without shrinking. Assertiveness creates relationships built on mutual respect, not quiet resentment. Another key shift is to give from choice, not obligation. Ask yourself before saying yes, am I doing this because I genuinely want to, or because I'm afraid of what will happen if I don't? True kindness flows from abundance, not fear. When you give freely, you feel energized. When you give out of guilt, you feel depleted. That difference changes the entire emotional tone of your relationships. The Stoics would remind us to reflect daily. Did I act from wisdom or from fear? This kind of reflection strengthens your ability to align your actions with your values, rather than with the expectations of others. It turns kindness into a conscious act of character, not a reflex driven by insecurity. Finally, start valuing your own time and energy as much as you value everyone else's. Imagine your kindness as a resource, powerful but finite. If you give it away indiscriminately, it loses its impact. But when you offer it deliberately, it becomes meaningful, respected, and strong. Reclaiming your power doesn't diminish your kindness. It deepens it. It turns kindness into something sustainable, a choice that uplifts you and others instead of draining you. Section 7. Real-life application. In modern situations, philosophy only becomes real when it's lived. Understanding the dangers of excessive kindness is important, but transformation happens in the small, everyday moments where your habits are tested. These are the moments where you either fall back into people-pleasing or choose a new path anchored in strength and clarity. Take the workplace, for example. Many people who are too nice become the unofficial problem solvers of their teams. They stay late to cover for others, accept extra tasks without question, and rarely push back against unfair expectations. At first, this may make you seem dependable, but over time, you become the person others rely on to clean up the mess, often without recognition. A Stoic approach here is to calmly recognize what's within your control, your effort, your communication, and your choices. If you're constantly overwhelmed, it's not noble to keep saying yes. It's wise to set limits, saying, "I can take this on, but I'll need more time," or "I don't have the capacity to do this right now," teaches others to respect your boundaries without hostility. In friendships, being overly nice can lead to unbalanced dynamics where one person gives endlessly while the other takes. Maybe you're the friend who always listens, supports, and adjusts, but your needs are rarely acknowledged in return. Applying Stoicism means recognizing that healthy friendships are built on mutual respect, not silent sacrifice. You can still be kind, but you also have the right to speak up when you feel overlooked. Something as simple as, "I've been supporting you a lot lately, and I'd really appreciate if we could talk about what's going on with me too," can shift the dynamic toward balance. In families, excessive kindness often shows up as taking on emotional responsibilities that aren't yours. You may constantly mediate conflicts, fix other people's problems, or suppress your own feelings to keep the peace. But this often leads to quiet resentment. Stoic wisdom teaches us to accept what's not ours to control. You can care for your family, but you can't carry their emotional weight for them. Sometimes true kindness means stepping back, not stepping in. The digital world is another place where misplaced kindness can drain you. Maybe you feel obligated to respond to every message immediately, engage in endless online debates, or tolerate disrespectful behavior in the name of being polite. Stoic philosophy reminds us you are not required to react to everything. Silence can be a powerful boundary. Muting, unfollowing, or simply not responding are all valid ways to protect your energy in spaces designed to provoke reactions. Even in romantic relationships, excessive kindness can become a silent barrier. When one partner constantly prioritizes the other's happiness over their own, imbalance and resentment build slowly. Healthy love isn't about endless compromise. It's about mutual respect and honest communication. Being kind doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations. In fact, having those conversations is one of the kindest things you can do for the health of the relationship. These real-life applications show that kindness doesn't need to disappear. It needs to evolve. Stoic kindness is not about people-pleasing. It's about acting with wisdom, clarity, and strength. In every situation, the principle remains the same. Give with intention, set boundaries with calmness, and anchor your actions in what you can truly control. When you apply this consistently, your kindness stops being a weakness others can exploit and becomes a quiet power that commands respect. Conclusion: kindness is a beautiful strength, but when it's rooted in fear, approval-seeking, or the inability to set boundaries, it quietly becomes your undoing. Being too nice isn't about kindness at all. It's about disconnecting from your own voice to maintain external harmony. Over time, that disconnection drains your energy, erodes your confidence, and changes how others see you. The Stoics taught that true virtue isn't about pleasing others. It's about living in alignment with reason, strength, and authenticity. Real kindness flows from clarity, not from guilt. It's the ability to care deeply while standing firmly in your values. It's saying no without hostility, helping without losing yourself, and choosing generosity without betraying your boundaries. When you start practicing kindness with strength, everything changes. People respect you more. You respect yourself more. Your relationships deepen because they're built on honesty, not silent resentment. And slowly, you stop living for the expectations of others and start living as your authentic self, kind but not controlled, giving but not empty, present but grounded. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on where in your life you've been giving too much without balance. Ask yourself, am I being kind from strength or from fear? If you found value in this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next lesson in self-mastery. Share this video with someone who's always giving too much. It might be exactly what they need to hear. And let me know in the comments which of these sections hit home for you the most. Your story might inspire someone else. Remember, real kindness begins when you stop betraying yourself.